Committees. I will read a short missive preamble responding to COVID-19 emergency procedures. As chair of the Budget Recommendations Committee, I'm declaring that an emergency exists, and I'm invoking the provisions of RSA 91-A:2, 3B. Federal, state, and local officials have determined that gatherings of 10 or more people pose a substantial risk to our community and its continuing efforts to combat the spread of COVID-19. In concurring with their determination, I also find that this meeting is imperative to the continued operation of town government and services, which are vital to public safety and confidence during this emergency. As such, this meeting will be conducted without a quorum of this body physically present in the same location. At this time, I also welcome members of the public accessing this meeting remotely. Even though this meeting is being conducted in a unique manner under unusual circumstances, the usual rules of conduct and decorum apply. We'll start the meeting by taking roll call attendance, when each member could state their name and also state if there was anyone in the room with you during this meeting. Nancy?
Nancy Belanger, I am alone in the room.
Robert Kelly, Chair, I am alone in the room.
Christopher Zigmont, and I am alone in the room.
Not sure what order to go in, but
maybe we're all different on different screens. So
different on the screen, so I'll just go here. Anthony, alone in my room here.
Kaylee
Bryden, one other in the room.
Doreen
Chester, I'm alone in the room.
Nico.
Nico Papakos-Deason, I'm alone in the room.
Joanna, do you have to articulate that you're here, please?
Joanna Bartel, and I'm alone in the room.
Don?
Don Clement, I'm alone in the room.
Russ?
Russ Dean, I'm alone in the office.
Amy
Farnham, alone in the room.
Molly
Cowan, alone in the room for now.
Julie?
I am a select board member, and I am alone in my room with my cat Scout.
And Chris already introduced himself. Corey?
Corey Stevens, JD Hill Ave. I'm alone in the room except for the golden retriever that just moseyed on in. So
nice. We'll wait to hear from him. Liz?
You will.
Liz Canada, alone in the room.
And Judy?
Judy Rowan, alone in this part of the room. My husband is wandering around in a tended location.
Thank you, everyone. First order of business is the nomination election of chair and vice chair for the year 2020, where we review the FY21 budget. I will currently entertain nominations for the position of chair.
I will nominate. Oh, go ahead, Don. You go ahead.
Oh, I was going to. If you would serve again, I would be on. I would love to nominate Mr. Kelly as chair again this year.
Second.
I will agree to serve again. Any other nominations? I will move that nominations be closed. Don has moved and Nancy has seconded to have me return as chair. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I think you need to take a roll call for this.
Got
it. All votes need to be done via roll call, unfortunately.
Yeah, I forgot that. Nancy?
Yeah, and Bob, Judy's the one that seconded it. She got in before I did. And I say yes.
I will say yes. Tom?
Yes, I say yes. Anthony?
Kaylee?
Yes.
Don?
I vote aye. Vote yes.
Amy?
Yes.
Chris?
Yes.
Corey?
Yes.
Judy?
Yes.
Anna? Did you, I don't know if we are voting on having me return as chair, and we're just taking a roll call vote. Okay. Chris, we're doing a roll call vote to have me return as chair.
Oh, absolutely, yes. Sorry, I'm having some issues with my email from my iPad, but I'm going to try and switch over that shortly. So, get off my phone.
So how do you vote for the on?
Oh, I said absolutely yes.
Thank you, Liz.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, everyone. I will now entertain a motion or motions for the position of vice chair for this year.
I would nominate Chris Suter.
And I will second.
Would you agree to serve again, Chris?
I do.
Yay.
Any other nominations for the position of vice chair? I will move that the nominations be closed, and in regard to having, sorry, my dog is barking.
I was going to say,
Suter as vice chair
muted.
of the committee, Nancy Belanger.
Yes.
I will vote yes. Tom?
Yes.
Kaylee?
Yes.
Don?
Yeah, vote yes.
Amy?
Yes.
Chris?
I vote yes.
Corey?
Yes.
Judy?
Yes.
And Anna? Liz?
Yes.
And Chris, I'm assuming you'll vote for yourself?
Sure. Yes.
Okay. Well, thank you for that order of business. The next item on the agenda is to hear from the select board in the person of the chair this year, Nico Papakonstantis, who will say a few words on the process and what we have done in the past and how he and the board see us helping them out for the fiscal 2021 budget. Nico?
Great. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and congratulations to you and Christine for your elections as chair and vice chair. And thank all of you for volunteering again to serve on the Budget Recommendations Committee. This is a very important committee for the town. And as you may have heard on the select board meeting the other night, after Doreen gave her budget summary, I got very excited when I noted that we were going to be convening the BRC in just 2 days. Having been on this committee for 3 years and chairing it too, it's near and dear to my heart, and I do get excited at budget season. So thank you all for this important work that you do, particularly this year. As you know, I mean, we're in the middle of a pandemic and troubled times. Our goal since March has been to try to continue town services uninterrupted, which we've been able to accomplish. The only services that went interrupted were not out of taxpayer money per se. They were out of revolving funds, but the rec department was the one that took the direct hit this year. Obviously, with the pool closing and summer camp not being able to open, although to their credit, the rec department was able to open up a Care Kids program. But all other town services remained running seamlessly. In fact, I think the DPW were able to get a head start on some of their projects. Our other goal was to ensure that we were able to continue governing the town without laying off any employees, and we were able to do that. So when Doreen gave her update the other evening to the select board, it was very nice to hear that the tax collections that were due June 30th came in at the same rate that they normally do. So we didn't really see any effect of COVID-19 on our tax collections for June 30th. Additionally, the water bill collection remains the same as it has been over the last few years. So even though we still have some outstanding water bill collections, nothing has increased because of COVID-19 directly. What's concerning to us, though, is what will happen in Q3 and Q4. If the federal government doesn't step up and help out those that continue to need help with funding. Obviously, there are people if people were out of work, they were getting that extra $600. and unemployment, which has recently ceased. So, I think really the true test is going to be Q3 and Q4, and, what is our tax collection going to be as of 12/31? Also, we don't know, the other unknown is the meal and tax revenue that the town gets, which we wouldn't know till the end of the year anyway, but certainly, we anticipate that could be affected. Mr. Dean has worked with the department since March to kind of have each department back off on the budget at a 10% rate. Everybody's worked real hard to keep expenses lean. And so I think the charge this year will be to look at the budget and ensure that, we can keep personnel where it is. I don't see how we can increase personnel. And obviously we want to keep services. We don't want to slash services. We may have to, cut here and there where we can. But certainly we want to move forward and continue running the town. The process, Bob, as you know, is going to be a little bit different this year. Obviously you're going to get into how the subcommittees will work and your meetings in the fall. But for now, all meetings need to be conducted via Zoom. We have had one committee try to meet, or they did meet actually in town hall, and that was, I don't know, depending upon who you asked, there was mixed response to how that went. It was very hard to hear. Obviously now where it's hot, the town hall is not air conditioned. To do a hybrid and have some people actually physically socially distanced in town hall and some doing Zoom, just the expense to do that is just too great. So right now, all meetings are going to be conducted via Zoom for the near future. Ideally in the fall, if things start to improve, we can look towards maybe doing in-person meetings. And I think that's going to be important for you just because of how big your committee is. And also I'm just thinking of that all-day committee meeting for the general government. But for now, it's going to have to be done via Zoom. And what I can offer you, Bob, and I was actually going to call you today, and I apologize, I got wrapped up in a meeting, where I've, worked with Zoom chairing the select board for the last few months and having chaired the BRC for 2 years, I'm familiar with, what you're going to have to do. I've come up with some ideas of how you may be able to effectively run the BRC meetings via Zoom. So maybe you and I can have a one-on-one to get you ready for the fall, providing that we're still meeting via Zoom. So with that, I don't want to hold you up. I mean, that's basically, the lay of the land now. The select board obviously takes your recommendations incredibly seriously. You're getting the budget, the draft budget, and you're going through all the line items. You're meeting with all the department heads. You're doing all of the research and the homework. I will continue to invite or suggest that all select board members attend. I plan to attend your meetings. You do great work, and we'll look forward to getting your recommendations sometime in December. And anything that I can do, Bob, or we as the select board can do to help you, please feel free to reach out. And thank you for your time. I don't know if Vice Chair Cowan or Selectwoman Gilman have anything to add, but certainly they're both here.
I just would like to say thank you to everybody who is volunteering to serve, and echo everything that Chair Papakosindi said. And also to the new members, it is weird to start the year or start a new endeavor only via Zoom. And so I thank you just for sticking with us and for the work that you're going to do. I think it's a really interesting roadmap about how what our priorities look like, and it's a really big way to influence what the town cares about and emphasizes and values. And so I think you will do a wonderful job, and it's going to be an interesting deep dive into a virtual world with real world implications. And I'm not being very eloquent, but I just wanted to say thank you so much for your service.
Thank you.
And I would echo the same sentiments as Ms. Cowan and Mr. Papakostantis, thanking you all for your service. I always say at the end of this process that this is a kind of exciting time for me, because this is a large body of people, and I get to hear from different kinds of, or different levels of interaction and listening and new ideas, because we have new people on the committee. So it's for me, it's a great input session. And also, I think it's great for you folks to hear how our departments actually work and why there are reasons for what we decide in our budget. So I thank you all for coming on board, and I look forward to the outcome.
Thank you, Julie, Molly, and Nico. Corey?
First, is there a way to raise your hand? How do you guys do that with Zoom?
Yeah, there's a raise your hand function.
If you click on the participants, there's the participants shared screen and record tabs at the bottom.
Raise hand. Got it.
There you go.
Awesome. Learn something new every day.
Raise your hands in the lower right-hand corner.
Great. Number 2 is, if we're going to meet Zoom with all of our department heads, I assume they're all equipped to meet Zoom and that won't be an issue, or are we going to run into issues there?
Corey, Mr. Chair, if I may, that's an excellent question. When I spoke with Mr. Dean last week about this, we see no reason why the subcommittees cannot meet in person. The Novak room, where your subcommittees are usually 2 to 3 people and you're meeting with, maybe 1 or 2 department heads, the Novak room is big enough for everybody to socially distance and conduct your work. So there's absolutely no reason why the subcommittees can't do their meetings and their work with the department heads utilizing the Novak room or maybe another town room that is as big. In fact, Mr. Dean and I have had meetings in there with other department heads. There's plenty of room to social distance. You can wear your masks and conduct your business. I think really, Mr. Chair, the only meetings you'll have to Zoom are your actual full committee meetings.
Full meetings, yes.
Yeah.
And then, nobody is going to be forced to meet in person either. It'll be, you'll divide into subcommittees and decide how to go forward.
Right. And to that point, one of the reasons why I sent out the email on meeting is I wanted to get an idea from everyone what their tolerance might be. And I do appreciate we had 100% response, which is great. I never get that on other committees. And we're going to do this all together. We're not going to do the separation, even if it evolves into that in September, October. So we're all either going to meet together in person or we're going to all meet on Zoom. So, like I say, we're all doing this together. Before we get into Russ's discussion, I just want to, Amy Farnham had reached out to me about how, as a new member, she could prepare, and Chris and Kaylee, you may have had the same concerns. And unfortunately, there's not a lot of preparation that you can do for this committee. It's just going through the numbers. So going forward, if either Kaylee or Chris, you want to reach out to me and we can talk, just about, sort of the procedures and all of that. But there's no, like a laundry list of things that we do. We basically get the budgets. I'll go over the subcommittee, delineation of how we look at each department later on. But again, feel free to reach out to me independently, either after the meeting or in the next couple of days. So I know it's still a little premature to be dealing with the exact budget detail, but Russ, if you would just walk us through over the next month or two how things get put together and how things are looking, revenues and versus expenses year to date.
Sure. So thanks, Bob. So I anticipated doing a little bit of an overview for you, and then I was going to have Doreen walk through the same report essentially that she walked through with the select board on Monday night to give you a snapshot through June 30 of where things stood. I think Chairman Papakonstantis said it very well. This year has been very different in terms of how it's evolved. It seems like, only yesterday we were at the polls in March, or maybe it doesn't, and the town budget was being voted on. The thing I always like to say right out of the gate is the town share of the tax rate is essentially a 1/4 of the entire tax rate. So when you're looking at, those numbers as a percentage of the tax bill, we're about 25%. So it's good to understand that going into the process. We had our 3 budgets, the general fund, the water fund, the sewer fund, all passed with healthy margins at the ballot in March. And our fiscal year starts in January. So for those of you who are returning, you know that we actually go about 2.5 months without a budget. Then the budget is approved, and then we go forward from there. About a week after the town election this year, we were in a different space with the COVID pandemic. We had the town office closed to public access, but we were continuing to operate in, I would describe it as a semi-virtual environment. We still had our public safety, our public works people. We had some people from the town offices working remotely, but we didn't, as the chairman said, we didn't stop providing service to the public. We kept going. And as things progressed in May, as it was pointed out, we took a look at our FY20 budget and talked with our departments and asked them to put together a list of things that it was sort of an if-then scenario. If they had to, if we had some negative revenue impacts, what kinds of things did they feel they might be able to put on ice for a little while until we really understood better sort of what the lay of the land was. And at that time, we really didn't have a great grasp of sort of where we were headed. And so as a result of that, they did provide some lists, and there have been some things that have been deferred up to this point in the budget process. But as the year goes on, I think we're feeling more confident about the idea of doing some of those things. And we do have an indicator from the state, and we haven't heard otherwise, that meals and rooms tax and general revenue sharing that were appropriated in the budget will come in for 20. And hopefully we'll get some, more clear direction on that in the next month or so as we work with DRA leading into our revenue projecting and our tax rate setting. The other thing I wanted to point out, and so I will go through some of the specifics of that. The other thing I wanted to point out is actually some of the trends are, we just had our draft financials submitted to us, and our general fund balance is where we were at this time, or for the 12/31/18 audit. So that has come in a similar number. So each year we allocate a certain amount of our fund balance to offset our budget, and we feel like those numbers are good this year as well. Some of the other things on the revenue side are the Gopher Funds that have been made available to the town. So we submitted a reimbursement to the Gopher, which is the state CARES Act group that has been overseeing the CARES Act funds. And we have been able to secure another $362,000 and change in revenue to help what I would call plug gaps in our revenues. So in the event that we have, some downturns in building permits, or maybe interest and penalties on taxes and things like that, we'll be able to balance out, I think, some of those things with the Gopher Funds for FY20. We're also actively pursuing funds through the FEMA reimbursement process. So we've been doing that, and you'll see revenues come in over the course of the year to help with that. The other thing is I just was able to review our draft MS1 today, and it looks like property values are staying stable, if not increasing, to some degree. I think you probably remember last year there was a revaluation and property values went up quite a bit. And the early return estimates have us going up maybe another 1% on net taxable value, maybe 1.2%. So that will add more tax base volume to our overall number. So that is, we've definitely been impacted. I think the other thing I wanted to say about our operating budgets are that because of the COVID pandemic, as the committee works through the budgets, you'll see different things like education and training budgets probably won't be spent to the level that you would have expected to see. Travel, out of state, conferences, things like that. You're going to see dips in spending there too, just because we as an organization have basically shut down those things, and conferences aren't happening anyway. And so we're not going through those processes like we would in a normal year. And then the other thing I would point to is that we have actually had a number of positions that have been have also not been filled at this point. We have an engineering tech who left during the year that we have not filled. Our HR assistant, our new one who was part-time, decided that she would be better off at home. And again, these are instances where we're in a unique situation where people are making those decisions. Our electrical inspector retired earlier this year, a couple of months ago. Also, we have not filled the full-time mechanic position in Public Works or the HVAC plumber position. So to sum up, a lot of those things are basic hedges against, potential downturns in revenues. And we think overall with that sort of thing, we can help balance things out over the remainder of the year.
Thank you, Russ. Before we get to Doreen, how, in addition to travel, how have we been doing on other purchases like vehicles or special projects and things like that?
So we have deferred the mini loader, highway truck 9. Again, I'm referring to things that were in the warrant from FY20, for FY20, the transit van. The conservation fund money has not gone over to the conservation fund. That's $50,000. The public safety repeater project has been held up, and Pickpocket Dam, some of those funds as well. So I think, again, given where we are in the year and given the fact that we are over the hump, keep in mind these determinations this list was put together prior to our initial tax collection. So as the chair pointed out, at 97%, we're doing pretty well. So we will continue to assess this and try to see where we might be able to implement some of these things maybe closer to the end of the year.
Great, thank you. Doreen?
I think Russ covered it pretty well. Did everybody get a chance to see the written report that was out there online? It's comprehensive. I'm in agreement as far as...
Can I ask a question? I'm sorry.
Christine, yeah, there was an email sent out by Pam earlier today. Yeah. So it would be in your email.
Oh, no, I have everything. I just, I had I hit the button for raise your hand. I don't know if it showed up or not. But I had a question.
I've got mine up as well.
Okay.
Go for it.
Maybe I could answer questions. That would be great.
Okay, so I'm going to ask a question. I guess, Corey, you can ask the question. This is to Russ, because you said that some positions went unfilled. And I'm just wondering, has that affected the runnings of the town at all? Because I know as an employee of another town that, where staff are lean, so missing like a mechanic and some other folks, does that hurt the functioning of the town at all?
I would say yes, and I would say that we're definitely feeling a pinch from it. I know, one of the positions I mentioned, the electrical inspector as an example, the building inspector and I just talked last week, and that's one that we want to get on the road to filling, because we actually do have quite a bit of building activity happening right now. And without an electrical inspector, we're sort of stretched to the gills in that regard. So any number of these positions, they all have had an impact by not having them filled. Yes.
Are they purposely not being filled at this point, or is it just because of everything that's going on? You're not able to advertise and interview folks, or?
I think it's a combination of things, but I think it was, like I said, I think in our initial phases, we wanted to see how we did for the first round of collections, tax collections wise, and kind of get a lay of the land for revenues before we decided to go forward. There are positions that we are advertising too. I want to make sure that that's understood. It's not an absolute, we've held everything up. There are some things like the HR assistant position we're going to go forward with and advertise that. The fire part-time assistant and things like that. So I think it's just a combination of trying to stay on our feet and get these positions advertised and try to move it ahead, keeping in mind the overall financial picture.
Right. Thank
Corey? You. Are you all set, Chris? Did you have anything else?
All set. Thank you.
Corey?
So I guess Russ or Doreen, do we have a sense of, if at all, the impact, the expense that the towns incurred related to logistics for responding to COVID? Is it manifested itself in any way, or is that kind of equaled out by the things that we're hedging or icing, as you say?
We are tracking expenses for COVID-19, and we have since March. And part of that was the Gopher funds that were available. And I guess the majority of it were public safety or first responder payroll plus some other expenses. I don't know if Russ got the copy today from Eric. I think he was sending it your way. But we do have an idea of what's going to be sent through FEMA and so forth.
So when we look at actuals versus, budgeted, will there be lines, or will there be departments where we'll notice anything in particular, or not necessarily?
Yes. One of the things in particular is the first responder COVID-19 stipend. And I had discussed that, and it's in my report, that for any certified police officer or firefighter received $300 extra a week for 8 weeks and 2 days, and that was fully reimbursed by the federal government. So that's one of the items I can think of.
It may not be as obvious because we didn't add line items in the budget. I don't believe, Doreen can correct me on this, but for COVID specifically. But what you will see is you'll see in certain instances, you'll hear from departments about things that they had to buy. And there is some variation in it because, for example, the PPE that's been provided by the state, as an example, has just been provided to the town. We have not gone out and bought our own PPE and submitted anything for reimbursement. So it's a combination of things that I think as you interface with the departments, you'll be hearing from them about things that they've had to buy. Parks and Rec has had to buy some signage, as an example. The IT department has had some expenses related to COVID, obviously. We had that conversation today, actually, again, where if you think about it, this meeting would normally be in a room, so we would have EXTV cover it anyway, and they're here covering it now just via Zoom. So those aren't additional expenses necessarily, but there are some specific things that we certainly have had to buy due to the COVID issues.
It sounds like labor is where we really see the hit.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment.
Thank you, Russ and Doreen. Anyone else have any follow-up questions on the financial part? Amy?
Yeah. So forgive me, this is the first time I've seen this form, but in the general fund revenue highlights, it shows a lot of decrease from prior year. Is that just compared to at this point last year, or is that because we're only halfway through the year?
Yes, it's a comparison of June 30th, 2020 and June 19th. June 30th, 2019. So that's year over year actual increases or decreases. And just, you're looking at those decreases. We don't know where the property tax interest will land. That usually goes up later in the year. Motor vehicle is still strong, and building permits and fees. We had a really spectacular year in FY19. And from what the building inspector says, that permits are coming in very steady. It's just probably not the size of projects. They're smaller projects, but it's still steady in that particular area.
Okay, thanks. So we're not concerned about all those decreases?
No, but we're monitoring them. I won't say I'm not concerned, but we're monitoring them very carefully.
Okay.
So if you think, yeah, and just to jump in on that too, I mean, I think one of the things that we are trying to piece together here with this is if you think about $200,000 in deferred paving as an example, which is one of the other items that we've held up, because we'll typically do 800,000 of paving. We've done 600 so far in the year. So if you think about just sort of balancing things off, if you have a decrease of 200 in revenue, we have sort of the set aside, if you will, to offset that. So just to kind of make that point about, and that's what I was talking about with the Gopher revenue as well. So we are in it's sort of this continuing pattern of monitoring the revenues as they evolve toward the end of the year. So one thing I did not mention too is that the town is actually in line also for a health trust reimbursement. I was at a meeting last week where the board voted on that. And because of the claims being decreased as a result of the COVID situation, the board voted to issue a dividend to cities and towns. So you'll be hearing more about that later on, but that will also be a revenue that will help us out in this year.
Excellent. Thank you again.
Judy? Yeah, I did not receive that report from Doreen, so could somebody send that out to me?
I don't know if it was distributed. Maybe Russ could answer. I know it's online under the meeting and agenda.
Oh, I see.
It's part of the packet, but if you'd like a copy, we can certainly get something to you if you need a hard copy.
It
was sent this morning by Pam, Judy, and you are on the list. Pam McElroy?
Yeah, she did email it out, so hopefully it got to everybody.
It's not in my email.
Okay, I will send it to you after the meeting, or unless you want to look at it now.
No.
Yeah, you can pull it off the, I believe, off the website.
I'll send it to you after the meeting, Judy.
Okay, but there's a packet that...
It's a memo from Doreen to Russ and the board. Discussing the year-to-date financials.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Yeah.
It's 21 pages.
Okay.
So, Mr. Chair, may I interrupt for just a moment? Because people are new, some people are new to Zoom. When you're done talking, you want to unraise your hand. If people don't know that. There we go. Thank you.
My arm was getting tired. Thank you, Nancy. So Ton's got his hand up physically there. Hey, Ton.
Right. Ton, go for it. Unmute yourself, Ton, if you would.
Thank you. Yeah, so much to juggle. Thank you, Mr. Chair. In follow-up to the memo that was distributed, so maybe for us, maybe for Doreen, there was a mention of liens of 5.78 million. Seems like a large sum of money to me. Is that pretty typical for the town at this point? Is that where we usually are, or not? So that's one question I have.
We're talking about property taxes, Tom?
Yeah, exactly. Property taxes outstanding, etc.
Yeah.
That's a June 30 number, I believe.
Yeah.
That's right.
Within $17,000 of the prior year, the total overall uncollectibles, but that's because this quarter ended 6/30 and the due date was 7/1. So that's why the number is always so big, because the due date is one day after this report gets issued.
Thank you. And then the other question, Russ, since you mentioned the health trust, so I assume that's related to health insurance, right? And we always anxiously await what our health insurance rates will be. And of course, that's still a long way off, but my sense is that healthcare consumption is way down, actually. So are we hopeful that our health insurance rates will be less accordingly, or what?
It would be premature for me to say anything about that at this point. I'm not actually clear on the answer. I've seen some projections that show increases, and I think as a board we need to meaning the Health Trust Board, and talk about what the assumptions are on those and where those assumptions are coming from. But I haven't seen a decrease, Ton. I can tell you that.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. That's all.
Anyone else with questions on the finances for Russ or Doreen? Then we'll segue into the the details of the BRC process, more for the three newcomers. As I mentioned, there's no real playbook for how we do this, but basically we, as a body of 12 people, we review the budget. We break up into subcommittees. There are 5 different departments that we review. General government, which is most of the town office groups. DPW is broken up into the general, highway and solid waste and that sort of thing, and as well as water and sewer. There's library, parks, and health and human services, and then police and fire. And then in addition, we as a group together deal with the capital improvements program, or CIP, and that will be at the end of the process. And again, even though it's not part of the actual budget discussions, CIP items that are voted in do become part of the expenses for the next year. So we all need to be aware of that. I have distributed actually 2 schedules, and Pam was nice enough to alert me to 2 conflicts. So I did revise that. Hopefully everyone has received the tentative meeting dates for both this meeting as well as our September meeting, and then getting into the meat of the budget review. The ones I changed are I took the DPW water and sewer off of Veterans Day, and then changed the CIP discussion away from a scheduled Board of Selectmen meeting. So those have been acceptable by Russ and by Pam. So we should be good to go on the schedule. So usually what we do is everybody sort of takes the next six weeks off. But I think this year we're going to have to start doing some lifting right away. There are, as you recall, last year, there were a lot of, let's say, specialty requests, a lot of vehicles, and a lot of projects, in addition to, obviously, the big one, the rec proposal. Some of these sort of came at us at the 11th hour, and I think most people on the budget committee felt like they didn't have a chance to fully vet some of the projects, ask enough questions, meet with the department heads, and get all the information that we need for deliberation. So when I get into the subcommittee work, I do want to stress it'd be worthwhile, I think, for people to touch base with the departments beforehand, even if we don't have the budget, just to sort of get the communication going. Ask them if there are any issues coming up, any big projects that they want us to be aware of. I think everybody would agree that if the rec folks came to us in September with information, we would at least have a much better opportunity to get into the meat of that project. So I'd like to avoid those kinds of hurry up at the end of October and November when everybody's really stressed out. Try to get a little bit of a jump on things. Any questions on the actual schedule itself? Again, our next meeting would be on the 23rd of September. Obviously, the schedule says in the NOAC room, but it will probably be by Zoom. Does that fit with roughly everybody's schedule? So basically, as a committee, we all meet, except for the all-day meeting. We meet at together at a 6:30, potentially a Zoom meeting, and discuss the budget. It'll be a little cumbersome at first, just because everybody's going to have something to say. We've got 16 squares and have to deal with things, but I think with some decorum and understanding, we should be able to get through it pretty easily. And I will start off by saying it is not my intention to not call on anybody. So if I miss you, raise your hand extra aggressively like Tom did, both digitally and mechanically as well. So I'll be sending out agendas and reminders for those meetings. But regarding the subcommittee, so one of the things that may not be clear on this, again, to the new members, is on Friday, October 16th, we do have an all-day meeting. If it is in the NOAC room, then the town provides lunch for us and everything. If we're still Zooming at that point, we'll figure something out on how to get together. But basically, in this case, Nancy Belanger is the chair of this subcommittee, and she'll be going through, and her subcommittee will go through all of the town office budgets. So again, to try to not string that out, we do it all in one day. And then the other four areas, we generally are able to do in one evening. And CIP, we've been generally able to do that in one evening as well. So on the subcommittees themselves, we generally break into 2 or 3 people per subcommittee, and they deal with the individual departments. Again, this year we're a little light on personnel, so some people are going to have to double up. I think it's fair to say I spoke with Don about the Public Works General, but I think Nancy and Chris and Judy, you're on board to be chair of your respective committees, was my understanding. So I'm just going to go through the list of the members here. And again, I sent this out, so I don't know if the new folks have had an opportunity to decide which committee or another they might like to be on. But when we go through, maybe some things will be clear. So we'll start off. Nancy is going to be the chair of general government. Kaylee, do you have any particular interest one way or the other?
I don't really have a preference. I'll go wherever is needed. But general government or police or fire seem interesting.
Okay. Well, we can talk about that. I had you. We can pencil you in on general government for now, but we'll see how it all shakes out. Liz, are you still good?
Yeah, I'm happy to be on the same committees as last year.
Library, Parks, and Human Services. Excellent. And Don, you'll still be on Public Works. You would just prefer not to be chair. Is that correct? Can you unmute yourself?
With the COVID situation, I prefer to stay as isolated as I can.
That's fine.
And I know on the subcommittees, it takes a lot of personal interaction. I'll be glad to serve on that subcommittee or any subcommittees, that I can, but I prefer not to. I think it's too high a risk to me to take on that responsibility this year.
Perfectly understandable. We'd love to have you on the Public Works General Committee. Amy, you and I talked a little bit. Did you come to any conclusions? I sort of thought that maybe there was an interest on the Public Works, one of the more technical committees. Is Public Works General okay with you, or did you have something else?
Honestly, I'm happy to serve wherever, just like Kaylee said, wherever I'm needed.
Well, I'm going to pencil you in for a Public Works General
Okay.
on that. And Anna, still general government with you? You unmute yourself.
There. I'd be happy to serve anywhere, but I think I would appreciate the chance to continue working with that committee.
Excellent. Excellent.
Which one was that again, Bob?
General government. Anna and I was going to work with Nancy on that. I was the chair of the water sewer portion of Public Works. Because of some folks leaving the committee, Judy is a woman without a country right now, so I am going to assist her. She will be the chair of police and fire again, and I will assist her on that. So Judy will just be the chair of police and fire. Chris Suter is the longtime chair of Library, Parks and Rec, and Health and Human Services, and that's still acceptable, I'm assuming. Corey worked with me on Public Works, Water and Sewer last year, and will continue to do so. And he's also agreed to chair Public Works General and work with Don and Amy, which I think that'll be a good committee. There's a lot a lot of meat that's going to have to be gnawed at it in that committee, the subcommittee. There's a lot going on in public works. So Corey will chair that as well as work with me on water and sewer. Is that?
Thank you, Corey.
Oh, you're welcome. No problem. You can just write the report down.
There you go. So, Chris, I don't know if you've given it any thought one way or the other, but, you could work with Library, Parks and Rec, Health and Human Services. There's a lot to do. Chris Suter has a good handle on that, but I didn't know if you had a particular subcommittee you were interested in.
Again, like everybody else, I'm happy to go where needed. However, ironically, that was the area I was going to request. So if that works for me, that's great.
We will dial you in on that. So, Chris, you have three folks now, yourself, Chris, Zygmunt, and Liz. Do you mind if I steal Ton to work with me on water and sewer? He was on your committee last year.
Go right ahead.
Is the draft open now? Is that, yeah, okay.
We're in the horse trading portion of things, so. Okay, so Ton, you'll work with Corey and I on water and sewer.
Glad to do it.
I will update the schedule, the assignments, and send that out to everyone. I appreciate it. I think, I'll have to decide, Kaylee, may have you just do general government because there's a lot to do, and Nancy basically takes 2 weeks off of her life and interviews people. So why don't you, for now, work with her and Anna on general government, and we'll see how things shake out on police and fire if we need to have somebody else to help Judy and I on that. But maybe if you really feel like working hard, you can do both subcommittees. Okay, so I will update this. I appreciate everyone weighing in. Russ, do we have an idea of when there would be an updated CIP book published?
So I will let people know that tomorrow night is the first meeting of the planning board to review the draft CIP. And if you go to the agendas and minutes section of the website and you look at the planning board posted meeting for tomorrow, you will see there's several items that are entitled packet. If you want to click on the first one that you see, that will open up the draft CIP. So you'll be able to access it that way.
Excellent.
And there are, I think you alluded to it, Mr. Chairman, but you are correct. There are quite a few capital items that are in the queue for review and discussion. So a lot of facility issues. I did want to mention, obviously, I didn't mention it earlier, but the library project, as we all know, is underway right now and in the middle of that. And several water sewer issues to be vetted as well this year.
What I'd like to do then is we'll wait for that meeting to happen and we'll review the draft CIP, compare it to what we talked about last year, as well as what projects and items perhaps have not been implemented yet. But around about the beginning of September, I will send out an email to the chairs of the subcommittees. And again, I would stress that with just sort of a laundry list of what we see as the big ticket items or the areas of concern. So I would recommend reaching out to, I don't know, in your case, Nancy, it's as critical unless you see something that you want to touch base with someone. But the other subcommittees, I think it'll be worthwhile.
Start early. I always start earlier than everyone else anyway, because I have all the department heads and there's a lot to it. So.
Okay. But the other,
Mr. Chair, I'm sorry. So if anyone's interested in the budget, part of that meeting tomorrow night, it starts at 6. It's only from 6 to 7 for the CIP. Thank you.
Don?
Yes. Russ, is there a way of getting hard copies of the CIP like we've always done? It's very difficult to try to keep notes and, for me, keeping notes electronically and hard copy of this, something like the CIP booklet is always works well for me. It might work well for others. Is there a possibility of being able to get those this year?
Yeah, we're happy to do that for you, Don, and anybody on the committee that wants. Right now, it's in a draft form, so
right. Yeah,
we're angling to go through the process, make some updates if we needed to, and so forth. But yes, short answer.
I think we usually get those at that September meeting, if I'm not mistaken, with the budget, either via email that week. We don't get the CIP emailed, obviously, but Nico.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. One of the things Mr. Dean and I talked about last week is because presumably you'll be working remote on Zoom, for those that it's difficult to pull things up online, a recommendation that we made was similar to what the planning board does, is to mail out hard copies to you. Those that cannot pull up online, obviously, everybody that can do that digitally, all the better. But for those that would prefer to have hard copies, I don't see any reason why we can't mail those out.
Excellent. Okay, so again, to the chairs of the subcommittees, I would stress that once that CIP, everything gets sort of sorted out and we start to get a view of the budget, I would recommend certainly maybe meeting preliminarily among yourselves. And also meeting with the appropriate department heads, just to, again, open up the lines of communication. I think, just start off at a better place rather than the first time we really see them is when we're meeting with them to talk about the actual budget. Just sort of a friendly, hey, how can we work this through together? So I'll let you know with that by email in the next couple of weeks. Tom? Unmute yourself, please.
Yes, that actually brings up the whole question about noticing and all of that for the new members of the committee, that as we meet as subcommittees, if we meet formally, we have to notice. Do you want to comment on that some more, Bob?
Well, if you're meeting to make decisions, yes, you should notice the meeting. I'm not indicating that that's the case. It's more just and when you get together with the department heads, yes, you should notice that meeting.
Got it.
And you should keep notes. And very simple. You don't need to just tell me, email Pam and say we're going to be meeting at this time at this date, and you should be fine. But somebody should keep notes.
Yeah.
Bob, just to follow up on that too, the subcommittees can schedule all their meetings through Pam, my assistant. We'll put them up on the website to make sure that, we meet the regs, and as Bob said, keep notes and submit them to her, and she'll post them as the minutes.
Again, you don't need to do as good a job as Joanne, but just some notes about what you talked about and who was at the meeting is all that's required.
So may I ask a question?
Sure.
So if our subcommittee is going to meet as a group without the department, we need to notice that, correct?
If there's three or more.
So if three of us on a subcommittee get together, we got to notice that. And if we all decide that we're going to meet via Zoom, do we have to allow an opportunity for the public to attend that meeting?
Yes, you do.
So we got to publish a Zoom meeting.
Correct.
And who can we work with at the town level to, like, I would imagine you want us on your Zoom platform, or?
Well, go through Pam and she'll dial you into Bob.
Okay. So he'd send us a link, and we'd do it just like we did tonight.
Right. But she does all the postings on the website and everything. So you should go through her first, and then she'll dial Bob in.
Yep.
As required. Then you bring up a good point. So just so we don't meeting ourselves to death before we get meeting to death in October, November, maybe you don't have to get together prior to meeting with the department heads. Use that as your get together. I think that would be fun.
Yeah, it seems like if there's anything that comes out of tomorrow night that's a hot item for a particular department, maybe that's a good segue into, all right, get together with a subcommittee and maybe start a conversation.
I would agree. Anybody else have any other questions or comments? Christine?
I just want to clarify. So if we're meeting with the, with our subcommittees and or the department heads, do we have to do it via Zoom, or can we meet in person in a spaced environment? Okay.
You can definitely meet in person. You know, again, it's subject to working it out with them. As Russ said, if there's only 2 or 3 people, 3 or 4 people, you can meet in the NOAC room or in their office or wherever, as long as the protocols are adhered to.
Yeah, we're happy to support the interface between the subcommittee and the department heads. I think we've been giving them latitude to say, you know, to members of this committee to structure those meetings accordingly. So what we're requiring is people wear masks to the meetings, that we have social distancing, and then you can do it in person.
So if I want a meeting with DPW and Jen in our subcommittee and I want it to be Zoom, the town will put that together and there's no problem with that.
Correct.
Jen won't have difficulty or having the people that she needs to have there. And so, okay, good.
Okay. I appreciate everybody taking time out to do this and going through the logistics and everything. Again, our next official meeting would be Wednesday, September 23rd. You will be notified a couple weeks before that by an agenda and another invite by Bob Glowacki to a Zoom meeting. And then I'll be communicating with you about the subcommittees and everything between now and then. But if there are no other questions or comments, I appreciate your time, and we'll adjourn the meeting for now. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Bob. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you.
Take care.
Good night.